Hello, this is Ira Whiteside, and we're going to pick up right where we left off. This is a continuation of the video for SSIS package generation and cube generation, and we were right at the point of demoing the code, so we're going to go right back to where we left off. Here we've got our sample program. We have walked through it in the last video, again covering the use of the easy ABI template here of easy OLADB to file package, picking up with the fact that within about 24 lines of code here, by simply defining the connection information, we're able to generate an SSIS package and copy a table. If we run this program, and let me point out the package name is going to be Flow Demo Package 4. The objective here was to prove that we could generate a package in 10 seconds. I'm not going to count out loud because I'm afraid it would take 9 or more, and I might not make it. And we were able to finish here in a few seconds. The package executed. If we step back into bids, we can see here that our package is available. I've added it up here. It's Demo Flow Package 4. We have all the capabilities now within the GUI if we want to choose to maintain the package going forward. Connection manager names here obviously could have been created as custom here. They've been generated. We can see that we're looking at the person address table. We can bring that up. That works. Our connection managers work. And then also we are writing out to a flat file. The mappings in this case were relatively easy and straightforward, and they were accomplished with the mapping capabilities inherent with an easy ABI. There are some other capabilities in terms of code you can add to map custom columns. We are not going to explore that in this video. So from a summary perspective, we've been able to use the EasyEye capabilities with their templates. As I mentioned earlier, in the end, I'll have some links to Bill Fellow's websites and to the Microsoft Team blog website where you can actually install and get available to you the capabilities of Easy API. At this point, we're going to move on to code generation for a cube. So if we restart our presentation, we've got the package. What about the cube? Obviously, in many cases in the application, you're going to need to have the ability to get that data loaded into a cube, and that would be the same issues that you have if you have your metadata and you're trying to get your packages generated without having to manually modify them. Then you're also going to need to have the ability to apply those changes within your analysis services environment. If we look at the steps that are involved in cube development, and the pyramid here you can see from the top down, we've got to go through the processes in order. Database connection to either modify or create a new connection, create a data source within that database, create a data source view within that data source. On the left you can see we're going to have to create dimensions. Within the dimensions we're going to create attributes, hierarchies, member properties. On the right we're going to create measure groups, creating measures and certainly the partitions. And then down here, we're obviously going to have to create the relationships that exist between the measures and dimensions. This is the analysis services object model, a little bit like the Leaning Tower here. Again, I'm not going to try to go to this in detail. I just want you to understand that the model itself is complete, meaning that you have programmable access via C# and VB to be able to come in and access all capabilities that you can see, server, database, cube, all of the classes here that would be required. To then just take one more, slightly more detailed walk through the process, and then we'll go to the code. We connect to analysis services. Obviously, we're going to create a connection. We're then going to create a database in our example. We're going to create a data source. We're then going to create a data source view pointing to specific fact and dimension tables. Sorry for that. We'll then create the dimensions, attributes, and hierarchies, and any member properties that we need. And then lastly, we'll create the measures, the measure groups, and the measures and the partition objects. If we take a look at the code required to do that, we'll go back to our sample here. And as you can see, we're still kind of looking at our program data flow. We're going to move this guy out for a minute. And then we're going to add in our, add our cube generation program, which happens to be called cube generator. Again, these samples, both the SSAS and this cube sample, were sampled from some great gentlemen on the web. I have their names and their links at the end of this presentation, and that will be available. If we take a look at the cube generator program here, and let's just open this guy up for sure. As we walk into this, we can see that, again, it's 450 lines of code. I keep mentioning the lines of code because obviously size does matter here in terms of the amount required. And our objective is to be able to generate this code, not even actually develop it. So as we look here, sorry for the bopping around here. Let me get back up here where I belong. There's a nice technique that's been used here where in essence we start off by setting up an array, a little string that gives us our dimensions and the keys for those dimensions. We also provide to some variables our connection information, MSOLAP, our table name, fact seller resales, our database name, cube name, and the like. As this case OLAP ABI. As we kind of walk through the program here, you can see that we're going to go ahead and walk through the processes of each of the steps that we've outlined earlier, connecting to the database, connecting and creating the data source, creating the data source view, and then continuing to walk through the entire process of actually creating the cube. First creating the dimension objects, and then lastly down here creating the measures and measure groups that you'll see. Finishing up here after we're done, after we've created our final measures of amount, sales amount and quantity, we'll end up by actually processing the cube. So if we run this program, and we'll see that we're walking through the steps, each of the steps that we've outlined. Again, not a tremendously complex example, but a reasonably or a moderately sized cube for a production example. If we take a look now in System Management Studio, I have obviously been busy creating lots of cubes here. You can see I think we're up to OLAP DB ABI 5. If we do a refresh, you'll be able to see that we now have a new, actually several new cubes created. We're now up to OLAP DB19. We check the properties on that cube. You'll see that this video was made on 9/25 at about 12:53, and this is the cube that we have. If we open up one of these cubes and take a look inside that have been created, we'll browse this. You can see over here that we have all of our capabilities. Our measures have been created here. We can drag over amount, as well as dimensions and information available within the dimensions. If we take a look at, in this case, one second. OLAP Cube 15 here, just in particular, I wanted to look at some of the hierarchies that were created. So we'll browse this cube. And then we'll actually finish off by looking at the same cube through the Excel interface. A little bit of a delay here. Sorry about that. So here you can see that we have available the amount and of course the ability to support the dimensions and the attributes. We didn't create any particular hierarchies in this cube, but you see we're running along here just fine. Before we wrap it up, what we're going to do is just take a quick look inside of Excel. Here we've accessed our cube, and again by generating a package with a similar type of load capability and then generating the cube, we've been able to pretty much automate the complete process of sourcing, transforming, loading, and creating the OLAP application. As we step back to the PowerPoint to finish up with a few items here. So, in summary, we have walked through the SSIS package generation and the cube generation. A couple of little cleanup items. Earlier we mentioned that when we created our SSIS package, we used the automatic capability of mapping column names that were the same. Just as a quick little techno primer here, there's an excellent article again out on msdn.com. Here's the code sample. As you can see, only a few lines that it would take. In this code sample, for instance, we're looking at incoming columns and we're checking with a simple case statement here for particular data types, changing those data types, and then we're actually taking, in this case, the input column name and making it _CNV. Just a little code sample for you to see the ease with which you can actually map your columns specifically. With that, let me skip through a few slides here. We'd like to have a little bit of discussion as I wrap up just on the overall strategy and application of these capabilities. What you're looking at here is really kind of a high-level representation of a metadata mart or a data model that consisted of, as you see here, metadata, which was target data structure and relationships, which can be obtained from data profiling. You see that on the top left, on the top right. The usage data, again, attained through data profiling and domain. As I mentioned earlier, I have many articles that cover these capabilities available on SQLServerCentral.com or various SQL Saturday sessions. As you can see on the right in the middle, the business processes and the transformation rules. The objective here is if you take the techniques that we've looked at and you're also able to combine that with some standard business requirements templates, you can build a relatively straightforward data model here that would allow you to merge your data profiling data with your structured data, as you can see on the left, with your mapping rules, and in essence be able to use that to generate the SSIS packages and analysis services cubes that we've been looking at. So really the approach is really trying to leverage the SMO and the AMO. The idea is to look at everything, analyze everything. We've got our little Sherlock Holmes example here, that we can provide you some exclusive techniques. I say exclusive techniques, just let me say some tested techniques, because there are many of these techniques available from folks on the web. The issue is being able to bring them together and get them in a comprehensive and kind of orchestrated environment. Revolving around the AMO and the SMO. We created a metadata mart. We can walk you through the process of that. That metadata mart here, as you can see by our analogy, is really the Rosetta Stone, the ability for you to be able to connect usage data with structured data and transformation rules, to the point that no stone is really left unturned, at least in terms of this kind of an approach to application generation. A little deeper data dive in the logical data model is really the fact that you are, again, combining here. The metadata mart is replaced by columns in the middle. And as you can see, as we walk through this model from right to left, we start with business capabilities and perhaps work streams or business processes. We walk through the process of understanding metrics, dimensions, and hierarchies. We define our entities. And then we go through and work through those transformations, in essence, the source to target mapping, and then listing our tables, databases, and servers, again, providing all of the data profiling and mapping information that's needed. It's a comprehensive approach. In this case, as you can see in our little diagram here, we may have an existing application where we've got various sources and tables. Those are represented in blue. We obviously would like a process to seamlessly add a new source and include in that the processes for updating our existing dimensions, handling change data capture or the like, and building out the cube. And this architecture, in essence, will provide that. There are many, many other areas to get into, but this has been a start at trying to go through that. I'd like to make sure I mention here a few folks in the samples that I've used. The easy API alternative package creation, you can see the web link here. And again, this will be available at my website, irawarrenwhiteside.com, and in the near future, actualitybusinessintelligence.com. World of Whatever by Bill Fellows. He provided the working samples that I then enhanced a little bit in terms of the easy API package generation, and OLAP cube generation provided by Avinash at avinashshktblogspot.com. One final reminder that most of these items are also covered at SQLServerCentral.com and various SQL Saturdays where I've presented some of these topics. Lastly, my information is Ira Warren Whiteside, ira.whiteside at actualitybusinessintelligence.com. I've worked extensively with Jordan Martz, who has provided and is providing guidance here in terms of where we're going to go strategically. He's available at jordan.martz at actualitybusinessintelligence.com.